Hey there, memory makers. Are you looking to create lasting memories that your family can treasure for years to come? Do you want to capture the essence of your family's journey in a tangible way? Today we're going to talk about aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, and how these three important settings or ingredients can help you to improve your photos for your family memories. Once you can understand and master these three important ingredients, this will lead to capturing perfect photos. This will allow you to get out of auto mode. Now, auto mode is not bad. You can still capture some really good pictures, and I hope you've captured some using our rule of thirds and our composition techniques that we talked about in previous videos. When you move your camera into manual mode, it opens up a whole new world of capturing those lasting memories and making sure that you are capturing the essence of your loved ones. I don't guess you want to watch me eat this cake the whole video. Let's talk about this cake. The first thing we're talking about is aperture. The aperture represents the opening of the lens through which the light enters the camera. It's like the layers of that chocolate cake. Just as layers add depth and texture to the cake, adjusting the depth of field allows you to control the depth of field in the photograph. You can have a shallow depth of field, allowing you to blur the background and focus on the family or your loved one, or a deep depth of field, allowing you to take in the whole background, the whole scene. This will put it into a sharp detail. Aperture is measured in f-stops. The smaller the number, the wider the aperture, or the amount of light that is allowed through the lens onto the sensor of the camera. The larger the number, the smaller the hole is, allowing small amounts of light to hit the sensor on the camera. You can have an f-stop on some camera lenses that could be 1.8 f-stop, which means it's got a really wide opening on the lens and you can see almost all the way through to the sensor on the camera. Or you can have up to a 22, which is a very small amount of light going into the sensor. By adjusting those f-stops allows the most or little amount of light to come in depending on the light in the room or in the outside, or depending on what you're wanting to capture. So since we started talking about light, let's jump to the next one, which is ISO. ISO determines the sensitivity of the camera's image sensor to light. Think about it of the sweetness of the cake. Just like the sweetness, it enhances the flavor. ISO affects the brightness and the noise level of the photograph. If you're in a well-lit area, you adjust the ISO sensor to way down. So if you're outside, you put it low. And if you're inside a darker room, you can bring the ISO up. Pick a low ISO for a well-lit situation. This will preserve the details of the photograph and reduce the amount of noise that the photograph has on it. What do I mean by noise? It's the graininess. It's we're trying to find as much light as we can. So we have to be careful when we are in a low lit room that we're not turning that ISO up so bright, making the photo very grainy and not very clear to see. If you are in a low lit room and you don't have a flash or you don't want to use the flash, you do want to make the ISO number higher. A good rule of thumb is to use the lowest ISO possible to get the best exposed photo. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is shutter speed. And shutter speed is having the shutter open and close at a certain speed. How many times will the shutter open? How long will it stay open to let light come in? How long will it take to close? Open and close. How fast does that happen? Allows the image sensor to capture the light and make the photo. So it's kind of like the baking time on a cake. The less amount of time that the camera is open, the less amount of light. The longer the camera shutter is open, this also would, in a cake and baking situation, it would affect the texture and the moisture of the cake. But this also allows you to capture motion, having the shutter open and close so quick that it captures and freezes the frame and you don't have the motion blur. You can also use a slower shutter speed that will allow the shutter to stay open long enough that if you're beside a beach, you can make the water look like it's smooth, like it has a motion to it. Or In the same example, you could have the fast shutter speed and it would freeze the water. You can use a fast shutter speed to freeze joy, or you can use a slow shutter speed to capture a sense of motion, such as a playful movement by your children while they're doing sports or while they're riding their bike or doing some type of fun activity, and you want to capture a little bit of motion. So how do you achieve a well-exposed photo? You adjust the aperture, the ISO, and the shutter speed. With these three settings working together harmoniously, you can capture the family memory just like you want it to be captured. You can achieve the ideal exposure and composition just like that layered chocolate moist cake. Just got the good feeling about this photo. It's really nice. A good starting point is to use a low ISO first, and then adjust your aperture to let's say a middle ground of an f8. Then let's set your shutter speed where it's fast enough that will capture the photo without introducing camera shake. The camera shouldn't move. In another video coming up, we will talk about how to hold your camera, not just using a tripod, but introducing other ways to hold your camera. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that you're holding the camera so that it's not shaking, or at least allowing the shutter to open and close fast enough that it doesn't introduce your body shake into the camera. The only motion that we want to capture is on the other side of the lens. So I would suggest setting the camera shutter speed to like 1 1/25 of a second. That's pretty fast, but it's not super fast. It allows you to be able to go up or down depending on where you want, but make sure you start with a low ISO and a middle ground aperture, such as an f8, and a shutter speed of 1/25. That would be a good starting point, a good baseline to use. Then you can go up or down from there. Just make sure that you use the baseline. Much like savoring that delightful chocolate cake, mastering that trio of aperture, ISO, and shutter speed allows you to create impeccable, lasting, joyful memories that you can treasure from now to come. So grab your camera. Now's the time to take a step outside of the auto setting and move to manual. You don't have to stay there. It's just so that you can master that trio. Embrace the power of that aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. Practice using the tips that we've used today. You can use this video up here to help you with your composition of photos. You can use this video right here to help you dive deeper into the rule of thirds that we talked about in the last video. Just don't forget, the best thing about memories is making them. See you guys in the next video.